Ladies and gentlemen, we have playoffs. We got playoffs. 2024-2025 NBA regular season is over, and we have playoffs. I'm excited. When the NBA season started, the viewership was down 40%, something crazy. It creeped up over the course of the season, and I think there was cause to be concerned about the NBA. I still think there is, but I think as the season has closed, there's been a lot of more drama. There's been a lot more of excitement. And I think we're really in for an awesome playoffs. One thing that we all understand, a couple of seasons ago, the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, decided to institute a play-in tournament, which kind of made it more, interesting, because now if you're not one of those like final 8 teams record-wise, you can go as low as like 10 and still technically have a chance to clinch the 7th or the 8th seed in the playoffs. And I think it's made a very interesting, dynamic for the NBA and for the playoffs. It's really dope. I think they're still deciding if they're going to include play-in statistics in like the playoffs. And I think they should. I really think they should. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not technically the playoffs because you're not in yet. So if they choose not to include it, it makes sense. And, I wouldn't fight it as a fan. I would understand. You know what I mean? But So this first series is the Atlanta Hawks and the Orlando Magic. This is a very interesting series. I have like a lot of the numbers right here in front of me. So they pretty much tied 2-2 during the regular season, with both teams, I mean, looking at these numbers, loosely being, anywhere between 106 and 117 points, which is only, an 10-11 point swing. So, I mean, this is a very dead even series. The Hawks finished 40 and 42. And the Magic finished 41 and 41. So these are two very evenly matched teams. And I think that that's going to make for a very interesting series. I really do. The Atlanta Hawks offensive rating was good for number 9 in the league, 117.3, which means they were a top 10 offense. The problem is defensively, they were 18th. That's not horrible. It's just technically a few spots below average. And so when you have something like that, you basically have a team that could technically score with the best of them and isn't, while not terrible on defense, can certainly have some problems if they're facing a team that is better on offense. The Orlando Magic are 28th in offensive rating at 104.6. That's trash. But the Magic have been terrible for a long time. In these last 2 years, they've been better. Banchero spent some time hurt this year. Franz Wagner certainly did his best Michael Jordan impression while Banchero was out. But during that time, of course, the Magic lost some steam. Their defensive rating, however, is good for 12th in the league. It's at 110.5. So what you really have here is Atlanta with a top 10 offense and Orlando with basically right outside of a top 10 defense. So the question is, whose strength will show through, right? Is Atlanta going to be able to score at will and Orlando can't do anything about it? Or is Atlanta going to say, hey, look, or is Orlando going to say, hey, look, all of that stops right here, right? If you ask me, I think that the Hawks offense will outshine the defense of the Orlando Magic. The truth of the matter is offense sells tickets, defense wins games. But that's not necessarily true in today's basketball because of the explosion of the three-pointer, how efficient teams have become at shooting those three-pointers. That changes the game. I'm the kind of NBA fan, I watch old tapes, hardwood classics, I watch old games. And, I considered doing a video, and I might still do it, about the 2004 finals between the Detroit Pistons, heavy underdogs, and the Los Angeles Lakers. And I looked at that series, and in one of the games, Detroit was up 15 points. And it's funny because at that time when three-pointers weren't as prevalent as being a staple and a part of the game, like a main shot attempt, the truth is that kind of lead back then was kind of the lead. And I thought about that. I'm like, nowadays a 15-point lead really isn't what it used to be. 2 3-pointers in the layup and you've cut the lead in half because of how they've chosen to play nowadays with the three-pointer a lot of the times being the main shot. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just funny to me how things change. But I just feel like this is the kind of series where it's really going to come down to Atlanta's offense versus Orlando's defense. And I think that's going to be the biggest part of this. To be honest, if Paolo Banchero wants to win this game, he needs like 40 points. And it's funny because sometimes, depending on the matchup, I'll say, well, this player needs to play like this player needs to play like that. Paolo Banchero needs to get 40 points in this game, and he needs to not be shy about it. Because honestly, I'm not sure. Like, I like Franz Wagner. I think he has potential to continue to grow. Before this season, he signed a 5-year, $224 million contract. So the Orlando Magic front office agrees with me. They think he has potential to really be the future. But I still think they're like one piece away from really being like dominant. And I'm talking like somebody like Naz Reid or something like that. Naz Reid is a 4, just like Banchero. And you might say, well, that doesn't work. But there's a way to work a rotation like that. Maybe Banchero can spend some time at the 3. They probably honestly need like a point guard or a wing guy as well, to be perfectly honest. But I just feel like the Magic is still one piece away from like, hey, Eastern Conference, y'all need to really pay attention to what's going on down in Orlando. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of their issues. I mean, you saw that their offensive rating is 28th in the league. When you can't score to that level, you really put the pressure on your defense to get every stop possible, because you need extra possessions to really make up for the fact that you're not very good on offense. On the other hand, you know, I feel like Atlanta, they've never really given Trae Young enough help. I mean, he's had several people come through the team, John Collins, Clint Capella, who I felt like was a really good, move for them. But they have some guys like Dyson Daniels, Hunter, that they're, I guess, waiting to get a little better. But, they've never really given Trae enough, in my opinion, right? They're giving him like pretty good players, but nobody that you're kind of like, well, I'm nervous. I don't know about this. Like, you don't feel that way necessarily. You kind of feel like they're still beatable. Atlanta's the kind of team where if they're not hot on offense, and I'm talking like league leading hot for a game, you could beat them. You really can. So I think Trae knows that. And if I'm Trae, he needs 30 and 10. He flat out needs 30 and 10 in this game. He needs to be, his impact needs to be on this game from the start. Like, as soon as the game starts, he needs to start firing, clicking on all cylinders. He might even need 15 assists in a game like this. He really might need it. And I just feel like Atlanta always struggles from just having mediocre players around Trae. That's what I really feel like it is. This guy's been in the league 5-6 years at this point, and he's always been tops in points, tops in assists. He's not the most efficient, but he's also about 6'1", 6'2". So his shooting percentages being anywhere from about 41 to like 43 are kind of average. The league average is 40 to 42. So I think this is who he is, and that's the whole purpose of building a team, figuring out how to put pieces around your players that help them shine and also mask their flaws, right? I always talk about that 2001 76ers team. Oh, they were one of the worst teams to ever, be dragged to the finals. Okay, cool. Maybe on offense, they weren't the best, but you had Allen Iverson MVP. You had Aaron McKee, 6th man of the year, and you had the Dikembe Mutombo defensive player of the year. That happened all in one season. So that to me says they understood that Allen Iverson needs defensive help, because that 76ers team was very tough defensively. They kind of gave the ball to AI to see what could happen. And, he was the only one that was really the threat on offense, right? Part of that is because like Jerry Stackhouse and some other players have said, AI just selfish. He just want to do it all himself. So maybe he ran a potential, backcourt mate or, powerful, dynamic duo mate out of town. He might have run him out of town. But that's really what I'm saying about, Atlanta and Trae Young. They have talent. They honestly have talent. But I feel like the talent, for some reason, does not actualize. And I think that's what ends up happening a lot of the time. In this matchup as well, the Orlando Magic's pace is a lot slower than the Hawks as well. So the truth of the matter is, Orlando has to really key in on high quality, high percentage shots. You know what I mean? If you remember the 2015-16 series between the Cavaliers and the Warriors' pace was a lot faster than the Cavs. And so one of the things they did, Kyrie and LeBron in the half court, they just slowed the game down a lot, held the ball for some time, kind of saw who was moving, Let it get to 10 seconds, sometimes 7 seconds and lower before they attack, because that's the only way you can do it. In boxing, it's the same way. If you have one guy who's fast and he's sticking and he's moving, and you got another guy, he's kind of slower, he's a slugger, that slugger has to beat that body. You got to make that fast guy start to get tired, and he's going to move as slow as you. And then if he moves as slow as you, now the pace is the same, and now you kind of have an advantage as the slugger, right? That's kind of what needs to happen with Orlando. They're going to have to slow the game down. This cannot be a 43-point game for Orlando unless they're just red freaking hot. This is going to have to be a mid-range post kind of game. You kick out to the three if it's open. Outside of that, you cannot get into a 3-point shootout with Atlanta. This has got to be an opposite yin-yang kind of game. This has to be a chess match, okay? They're going to have to control the boards because if they control the boards, they can control the clock. Almost like football. It's almost going to be like football. If you have one team who understands we're a little more limited on offense, we're a defensive team, and you have one team who's like high-powered, if they get the ball 300, 400 yards through the air, then if you're that team who has better defense and not as great offense, what do you got to do? You got to run the ball a lot and control the clock. That's kind of similar in a more of a basketball way of what Orlando is going to have to do in this game. They're going to have to control the clock. They're going to have to slow the tempo down, and they're going to have to hit a high percentage of their shots. I hate to say it this way, but they're almost going to have to be uncharacteristically good compared to how they've been during the season. They're going to have to be completely different, because if they're not completely different, Atlanta's just going to run the score up on them. They really are. I mean, they have a 12th ranked defense if you're Orlando. That's really good. That's top half of the league, right outside of the top 10, right? But Atlanta has a top 10 offense sitting at 9. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this matchup, especially because, again, during the season, they were 2-2, and they scored around the same points per game during the season. So my prediction, who do I think is going to win this game? Honestly, I think it's going to be the Hawks. I think the Hawks are going to win it. To me, I could see this being the kind of game that's within about 7 points going into the fourth. And I say that because, again, nowadays they shoot 3-pointers more. So even a 7-point lead, one team comes down, swish, hits a shot, that's 3. Lead chops down to 4. They get a stop, come down, hit another 3, leads 1. So a 7-point game isn't even what it used to be. 20, 30, 40 years ago, a 7-point game literally was like 3, almost 4 possessions. Nowadays it's 2 because, like I said, you hit 2 threes and you're back in it. It's a 1-point game. I think the Atlanta Hawks have the advantage. I think their offense is stronger than Orlando's defense. And I feel like once Orlando figures out how to be better offensively, obviously, that's when they're really going to shine as a team. When they figure out not even necessarily like faster pace or more 3-pointers made, which is part of why they got Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who has and hasn't really benefited as much as I thought this year when they got him from the Nuggets. It made the Nuggets weaker, and I told people the Nuggets going to have problems, and they have all year. He's been a benefactor, but not like that, in my opinion. You know what I mean? But again, unless he's red hot or somebody on Orlando is just red hot from 3, this Orlando team almost looks like the Lakers from about 2-3 years ago. We kept saying the Lakers, they can, 117 points a game. They can score, but they don't have any shooting. So whenever the Lakers went against a team that shot the ball well, sometimes you saw them just fall behind 10, 15 points. Why? Because they couldn't keep up with the shooting. That's what Orlando reminds me of. And so if you remember those early, like 2006, 2007, 2008 Memphis Grizzlies, they were grindhouse. Marc Gasol on one post as the center, and Zach Randolph on the other post as the power forward, and they ran their offense through the post, and that was what it was. Like, if you're Orlando, create some kind of identity. Even if you want to be a mainly paint and end team, do that. But you got to be highly efficient when you do that, because at the end of the day, Atlanta's going to shoot more 3-pointers, and if you haven't figured out how to be better on offense, Atlanta's just going to shoot you out the building. So Orlando has got to control the clock. They've got to control the rebound battle. They also can't get in foul trouble. Like, don't send Trae to the line a lot, because Trae is small. If Trae Young gets to the line 10, 15 times, he's going to cash most of those. That's going to be extra points that he certainly needs because he's smaller and he takes most of his shots, maybe 15 feet and out. So if you ask me, I see the Atlanta Hawks getting the 7th seed and winning this game. But I think it's going to be a great game, and I'm definitely going to be watching this game. Yeah, that's what I see in this series. Those are my predictions. I'm picking Atlanta to win this series. I'm picking Atlanta to win this play-in game tomorrow at 7:30. I hope you guys tune in because I'm going to tune in. It's going to be awesome. My name is Jamaal Bethia. This is the Clutch Report Play-in Tournament Edition. Peace.